This is the third presentation in a series about the Kaleido Information Engine and Teradata, and it's entitled Delivering the Right Data Fast, the Access Layer Made Easy. With the Kaleido Information Engine, customers can rapidly develop and deploy a high-quality data foundation for analytics in 90 days or less. In the first session, we talked about the business modeling approach that we take that helps expedite gathering requirements and configuring what's in the warehouse. In the second session, we talked about the automation and agility we get by automating many of the data integration steps and operational steps of building the warehouse. And in this session, we're going to talk about how we create the access layer for BI tools so that it's easy to deploy information to the users across the organization. Much in the way that Teradata delivers fast warehouses, Kaleido delivers data warehouses fast, and deploying to the access layer is one of the ways we do that. Now, if you are an IT person, you may have heard a lot of these things from your business customers internally. And if you're a business customer, you may be asking some of these things, such as, why does it take so long to produce a report? It may be because the business has lots of data, but not much information, because adding value to that data can take a long time. There may be special calculations that need to be created that don't exist in the source systems. The other fact is that there's just more and more data that's being generated in the course of doing business, and it's an awful lot to handle, and we need scalable solutions to do that. The other thing business users often say is they can't get the information they need to make better decisions. And so having more agility and reducing the time spent during the process of building a warehouse can help overcome that problem. Here's a graphic that illustrates the problem. Let's suppose there's a business event that occurs. This might be making an acquisition, doing a reorganization, rolling out a new product, opening a new location. And that may require getting new data in order to bring into the process to help make a decision about what to do. If you've made an acquisition, you want to find out where can I cut costs, and as soon as I can make that decision, I can start saving money. Well, IT has to go through a number of steps in order to get that information and present it to the business so they can make those decisions. IT has to figure out what's the requirement. They need to figure out how to model that requirement and design it into the warehouse. If it requires new sources, they need to integrate that data and then prepare it for use and consumption by their users' BI tools. All the while, there's a lot of testing and release to production steps that need to go through. All of this takes time, and in a traditionally deployed data warehouse, it can take quite a bit of time. And without having that information soon, there could be a series of other problems that the business has to face. Well, the only way to make those decisions faster is to compress the time spent on these various steps of requirements gathering, modeling and design, data integration, making data available to BI tools, and so on. So the idea is to move up the curve and realize a time-to-value benefit by moving off a traditional approach to a more automated and agile approach like Kaleido, which will give you a corresponding increase in business value by being able to make business decisions sooner and affect change in what's going on in your organization. So with the time-to-value benefit comes a corresponding business value benefit. And we believe Kaleido enables its customers to achieve these results. In this presentation, we're going to talk about the data access and BI layers and some data integration that goes along with making that happen. Now, in a typical Teradata warehouse deployment, there are really three general areas that are dealt with. First is a landing area to bring in data from the sources. Then there's the integrated data layer. This is the core of the warehouse, and it's where we want to be. It's what we want to have built out. And then once we've got the integrated data layer, we need to make that semantic layer or that access layer that is then something that the BI tools connect to. Now, Teradata provides a number of logical data models, or LDMs, to build out that integrated data layer. And a typical recommendation is to build out that LDM fully before we move forward. But that's what takes a lot of time. And that's also related to some of the integration steps that go through in that traditional cycle. So what if there was another approach that we could take to make this all happen faster? Well, with Kaleido and our business model-driven approach, you can bite off pieces of this model and deliver value sooner than trying to build out the entire LDM from the get-go. So perhaps you start with your first requirement, which is financial reporting. This allows you to focus on just the high-value data that the organization needs to start making decisions. The business model at the top drives the physical materialization of objects and tables in the landing area, and then in the LDM and the integrated data layer, as well as out to the access layer. When you have another requirement, you can then attack that by building out the relevant layers of the LDM incrementally. This may also affect some of the objects that exist from the first requirement, so there may be some additional green that appears next to the blue boxes, as you see depicted here. And just like before with the Kaleido business model that has changed at the top, we now build out the landing area, the integrated data layer, and the access layer. Finally, we finish up and deal with our requirements by expanding our model and incrementally updating the three areas that we just talked about. This example here is showing a pharma sales analytics as one of our requirements. You could be using either a general LDM from Teradata, or you may be using one of the Teradata BIOS or business improvement opportunities to build out your warehouse. But the idea here is that you're going to incrementally build out and complete that integrated data layer vision that we'd all like to have in our warehouse, but doing it in a timely way and delivering value to our business users as quickly as possible. There may also be some other requirements that come into the process. There may be some special views and special relationships in the data that are important to users. For example, relative time comparisons. They may also want to see proceeds year to date along with proceeds from prior year in two adjacent columns in a report. This is a calculation that's easily handled in Kaleido. Another kind of calculation is a converted measure, where you start with a measure that's stored in the database and you want to actually display it in a different measure. This kind of conversion can be easily done in Kaleido. A third example is something we call a mapped business entity, and this is creating a relationship between dimensions. So one good example would be between a geography and a time dimension. So in the United States, we celebrate Thanksgiving. That happens on the fourth Thursday of November. In Canada, they also have something called Thanksgiving, but it's usually on a different day, typically in October. So how do you resolve Thanksgiving Day in two different geographies? Well, that's what a mapped business entity can do. Another example is in Massachusetts. They celebrate Patriots Day, and they run the Boston Marathon, and it's the only state in the Union that celebrates that holiday. So why is this important? Well, you may be making deliveries of your products to your customers on those holidays, incurring additional costs. So you may want to charge a surcharge to those customers because otherwise it affects your margin. These are the kinds of capabilities that are easily modeled and automated in Kaleido, and this means you don't have to create those kinds of calculations in the BI layer itself. So this comes to how do we create the access layer? Well, with Kaleido we can automatically generate a semantic layer that creates views that can be deployed and accessed by products like SAS, MicroStrategy, and we even create the in-memory files that are used by QlikView. Creating these semantic layer is very easy to do in Kaleido, and it's done through a graphical environment to create something called a query definition, which can allow you to select the information that's required for the view for those users of these tools. If you're using a tool like IBM Cognos, Microsoft Analysis Services, or SAP Business Objects, you know that those tools have a fairly dense layer of metadata wrapped around them that's used to drive the reports. Well, Kaleido offers a graphical wizard that allows you to generate the BI tool metadata based on selecting a connector, selecting the data in Kaleido that you want to deploy. This includes roll-up paths, hierarchies. It can be a subset of the data, so if you need to create a data mart or a semantic layer for just a subset of the business. And then you can also pick the relative time period. Could this be the current warehouse, or it might be a warehouse as of a particular day and time, because Kaleido keeps track of all the history. There's a huge benefit to being able to use a wizard-based environment to do this, because it obviates the need to do any ETL programming to create that access layer. The advantages to this approach are many. First is it's an end-to-end solution, covering everything from the landing zone to the integrated data layer up to the access layer. The ability to incrementally deliver on requirements based on the business model will allow you to get to that complete integrated data vision, but allow you to deliver business value early and often. This is enabled by our common modeling language in the business model, where you can easily capture requirements working hand in hand with IT and with the business. This also allows you to rapidly prototype and get something in front of the users to confirm the requirements. If you need to create those calculations we talked about, you can easily do that in the model as well. And when it's time to deploy the information in production, you've got a graphical driven way to generate data marts and views, and you have a wizard-based environment for delivering the BI metadata layer for tools that require it, such as Business Objects and Cognos. As a result, compared to traditional methods, Kaleido can reduce 65% of the data integration and 20% of the data access BI layer compared to traditional approaches. You see in this chart here a depiction of the traditional approach in blue and the Kaleido in red, and that shaded area represents about 80% of the activity in building and deploying a warehouse. This is Kaleido's time to value zone. This is where we rip out costs and time and effort to get to a warehouse that's going to start delivering value to your business. Why Kaleido on Teradata? Well, as we said at the beginning, Teradata delivers fast warehouses. Kaleido builds data warehouses fast. Our customers can rapidly build and deploy a high-quality foundation for analytics in 90 days or less using this approach. Our environment is fully integrated and automated. It delivers agility by being able to quickly change the model in response to changes in the business. And because of the automation, we'll reduce total cost of ownership and won't require you to bring in third-party tools to accomplish some basic steps. Overall, this combines to accelerate the time to value to getting your warehouse out and in the hands of your business users. To learn more, don't forget to check out the other presentations in this series. To learn about the business model, take a look at Building Data Warehouses Fast, a model-driven approach for faster time to value. To learn about the automation and agility without ETL, check out the second presentation. And for more details on the automation, check out the presentation entitled Sunset Your ETL. For product information, please visit Kaleido.com.